Hey everybody, Scott Jansen here, back with another ACH interview. Today we have hypnotherapist and also hypnosis trainer Penny Chase on, who has you've actually been through a few of our ACH trainings. So we've got in a quick interview today amongst her busy schedule to talk about her experience using ACH with clients. So Penny, thank you for joining us.
Hey Scott, I'm happy to be here and to talk about this for you.
Yeah, well, you guys might actually
know what
you guys might actually recognize Penny. We did an interview with you, man. It had to be like a year and a half ago, maybe a year ago or something like that.
It was in 2020, like
Wow.
July,
Wow.
give or take. And I still get people reaching out to me, asking me about you because they saw that video.
That's awesome. Well, look, guys, we've got her back. Let's sort of drill down on what Penny's been doing with the business. So actually not the business, the actual hypnosis training. Let's talk about the ACH side. So being that you're a trainer and you've been seeing clients for a long time and you're sort of proofs in the pudding with the type of clients that you're working with, the results that you're getting, tell me about the ACH experience. What made you join and sort of what have you got out of it so far?
Yeah, so the reason why that I joined is I believe in having multiple ways to address a problem. You just simply cannot take a single process and try to cram your client into that process.
Yeah.
And my business had ramped up to the point that I was seeing people that with the process I traditionally have been using, I use advanced hypnotherapeutic techniques, age regression, forgiveness, parts work, those types of things. And periodically I would have a client where I knew I could help them, but I did not feel that that process was in their best interest.
Okay.
And you had been talking about your conversational hypnosis. I think you had an online program that I had gotten access to, and I understood the concept and I had played with it a little bit, but I'm an immersion type of person. So as soon as you offered it live, I jumped on that. And the very first session that I did with someone was someone that I had done regression with. And there were just so many layers and loops and knots, as you refer to them. But this person had some events in their life that in good conscience, I just could not regress that person again. I just was not going to do it because it was very emotional and I felt it was unnecessary. There had to be a better way. So 39 minutes. We had already done 5 sessions together, 39 minutes. And now it took a couple of weeks for it to really settle in. Anybody who's watched some of your master classes, I think the Udemy on like the processing and the testing.
That's it right there.
If you've seen that, you'll know what I'm talking about. It took a couple of weeks for it to settle in, and I didn't give the process instructions in detail enough that they even realized that when they messaged me that link fell into place. They didn't even realize it was a result of the work that we had done. But I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. Then I've had, another situation where someone reached out to me and finances were a huge issue.
Sure.
They had no idea how they were even going to pay their rent.
Wow.
There was somebody that they would come into money, but then they couldn't hold on to it. And there was this cycle. And so I offered them a single session. It's like, I don't know how I can pay for this. I'm going to do this. Give me a few days. And then like the next day they messaged me, the money just kind of fell in their lap. We did the work. I think we probably spent 2.5 hours together. But in that 2.5 hours, we untangled so many erroneous connections and beliefs that if we had been doing my traditional process, we would have been looking at 6, 7, or 8 sessions.
Wow.
And I can say that because I've done at least 2,000 age regression and forgiveness sessions. So I can observe and recognize what the person is processing.
Sure.
And that one session, and then the next month had their first $10,000 month.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Because it was just the mentality around the money and fear of asking for money because, oh my God, if I get the money, I might lose the money. So why have the money in the first place?
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So I'm rethinking the way I approach everything, and I'm getting away from the traditional processes and going more towards this. I mean, certainly I do the emotional work if someone needs it,
Sure.
but yeah, I love this. I've actually had to get away from free strategy calls.
Yeah.
MU Scott,
Yeah.
I've solved the problem on the call a couple of
That's the only
times. And it's just like,
downside.
you ask one question too many, and it's like, there you went and did it. And I even had a client who paid, like on the strategy call, they paid. We scheduled a call, and then 3 weeks later, you know, when they were ready to do their call, they're like, oh, well, that's all fixed. I've done this, this, and this. Can we just do some relaxation? I'm like, sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's
Sure,
that curiosity frame and asking the right questions and being curious with that question and things like that. That's the only downside. If you do it in the wrong places, like the strategy calls, it sort of bites you in the backside, but it shows you it works outside of therapy as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. It's funny, and not funny like watching the clients funny. It's just so curious, to use your word. It's curious to watch how we get so tied up in knots.
Yeah.
And then to watch them unravel. So.
Yeah. So with the ACH training and sort of all the principles and the strategy behind what actually makes it work, what did you start to notice as far as, wow, I can include that with my client, I can do this a little bit different? How did your sort of mindset around it start changing?
Yeah, so I was familiar with what an unconscious moment was from my original hypnosis training, and even some of the questions, but I was never taught how to put it together.
Okay.
So even when I do my traditional work, I will sometimes ask those questions, because people even, you know, in a formal trance can still not see what's right in front of them and ask those questions. But, you know, from the very beginning, when I meet the client, I just begin to set them up and ask these questions and let them figure it out. And I've had clients that didn't even go into trance per se, what we as a hypnotist would call a trance. Right. And I've just become of the opinion, we don't decide what trance is. The mind decides what trance is, period, end of discussion. So you have to let go of attachment to what you think trance looks like, because then you're thinking and you're getting yourself in your own knots. But I've had clients that didn't even, they just thought all we did was have a conversation.
That's really what it is. But because you're the practitioner, the sort of observer, there's so much happening that you're noticing that for them, it is just a conversation. It's invisible as to what you're doing because it's not obvious, but you're calibrating, you're looking at things, you're hearing things that the client isn't. And that's what makes this, for lack of a better word, sort of like a sneaky way to do it, because we bypass all that resistance. There's at no point where a client can say, oh, hang on, Penny's about to start. I know she started, because all you're doing is having a conversation. And then an hour or so later, your client looks at you and thinks, oh my God, the problem's gone. Like, when did we start? How did this work?
One of the habits I've had to break is to be natural when I ask some of these questions. Right. Because sometimes I'm thinking, okay, you know, where do I want to go with this? Like, what is the most like out of this world question I could ask, you know, and you tell us not to think too much about it, but sometimes I notice like, okay, I'm not quite natural enough, and but that's okay. It all comes with practice. And one of the things I've learned is that sometimes what on the inside feels like it would be like, oh my God, I would never ask that. That's exactly the question you have to ask.
That's that question.
And then it's just like, boom.
And again, that's just asking the questions that no one has ever asked them before, but you know, as a very seasoned and experienced hypnotherapist, they are the most important questions, because it gets to that place where they need to go super quick without having to beat around the bush and just ask any old question.
I had a client once with this metaphor that I was sitting there thinking, oh my God, I never would have chosen this as a metaphor. You know, they didn't come to me for depression or anxiety, but they had a past history of it. And as we're sitting there unraveling things, they start talking about feeling like they're going underwater, like I'm drowning, like I'm underwater. And like the way they solved their problem was, oh, I can just float.
Beautiful.
I can just float. I can just let the waves wash over me and I can float. And that person went into trance for 45 minutes.
Wow.
I literally sat here for 45 minutes.
Just waiting. Yeah.
Just waiting. And they were just doing their own thing. I could see the rapid eye movements, they were processing like crazy. I didn't need to say a thing.
Yes. That's the therapy. That's again, that's what we ruin. A lot of us, and I fell into this trap when I first started, we ruin the very art or the very magic of the unconscious mind doing what it's supposed to do in processing, but we interrupt it by talking and telling stories and language patterns, all the stuff that it only serves to interrupt what's already happening in front of us.
Yeah. Can I share something?
Of course.
When I first trained, I did a basic training. You learn the basics of hypnosis and the progressive relaxation induction and all the scripts. The greatest amount of stress from doing it that way was literally, what script am I going to have for the next session?
Yeah.
And then the client comes in and something has shifted with the issue. The script's inappropriate. Or you think you have a beautiful script, you go through the script, you emerge them, and you're like, so, what was most impactful for you, or what did you enjoy the most? And like, I hate the beach.
Yeah.
It's like,
use the wrong metaphors.
It's like your whole script was about the beach or the forest or what. It's like, this just takes, even the other advanced processes I use took that away. But this just really, the client gives themselves what they need.
That's right. You just have to set those parameters and let it go.
Yeah. So
what's been the most surprising thing for you using ACH?
The most surprising thing is that literally, for example, that one client, in 2.5 hours, we went through 7 or 8 sessions worth of work.
Wow. Little mini
because
session.
I periodically will just reach out and say, hey, how are you doing? I see that you're doing X, Y, and Z, right? Because they're on social media. And it's like, oh, it's great. It's awesome. So that's the thing. Now, is that going to be true of every person? Probably not. It depends on what's going on, the issue that you're dealing with. And that's why I believe in having more than one way to approach things. I recently have a client that they've done years of therapy. I've done some age regression, but they literally, you can see it. Boom, wall goes up.
Yeah, the resistance.
So we've done a bit of ACH. And sometimes it was like wall went up at one point. It was like, okay. And then one time they reached out, they're like, I just want to talk. I'm happy to come somewhere that I won't be judged.
Okay.
I'm like, I just let them process through and periodically asked a question. And then the next time we met, everything just fell away.
That's awesome. Well, looking at your experience with clients and all the extra trainings you've done sort of with ACH, what do you think? What's been the most important thing for you to learn, sort of putting all the pieces together?
To just let go.
That
is of any expectations of what the session looks like.
Yeah.
I had done that to some degree in my work anyway, but with ACH, you really are the passenger in the bus, not the bus driver.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, is that a tree over there?
Yeah. Every client is different. Every problem's different. So what the hell are we preparing for? What are we stressing out for? We can't, because if you start thinking ahead, you're now planning your path of attack, and that's not the place to go.
Well, you start to steer the session.
Yeah.
And there's no way we can know what's going on subconsciously. You can have an idea. You can have a frame of reference, but that doesn't mean that has anything to do with the person who's sitting in front of you.
Yeah. You look at the solutions that your clients have come up with. I know for myself, and what I was talking to the other people before, And I know for myself, the stuff that these lawyers and my clients came up with, I could have had a million guesses and I still never even got close to the resources that they come up with. And that's the magic of it. We don't have to think ahead. We can just be there.
Yeah. I had someone with claustrophobia specifically related to elevators.
Okay.
And based on the things that they told me, there were a million different directions I would have steered that. And what it all came down to was companionship was needed.
Wow.
I never would have come up with that. Just someone to talk to.
Wow. And what does that have to do with elevators?
A friendship level, nothing.
Who knows? And that's the important part. That's the fun part of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. It's so good to see. I mean, I'm talking to other students as well, you guys progressing so much with this, but also I think bringing that fun and enjoyment back to therapy doesn't always have to be serious. Doesn't have to be the pressure and stress to actually enjoy. I know I sit down in front of my clients and think, wow, I wonder where this is going to go today. I hope this goes somewhere crazy because I want to have some fun with it.
If I could shift anything, it's like, I wish that I could predict how long it takes.
Yeah, that's a hard part.
Yeah. You just can't do that. So, I tell people to block a little bit longer. I'm like, you might be surprised at how fast this actually goes.
Yep.
But you know what? I want to be thorough with the job. So let's just block off this much time.
Yep. And that comes with experience. You'll start to notice these things. But again, we can't predict too much. We can get a reference, but predicting too much, like you block out 2 hours and the session's done in 10 minutes, then the next client comes in and it's 2 hours on the dot, but at least you've got, you're doing so much in that amount of time and doing it thoroughly. Like you said, that's the only thing that counts.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So anyway, thanks for sharing this with all of us.
My absolute pleasure. Well, that's all my questions. So thank you for sharing your experience. I'm going to see you at the next ACH training in I think about 3 odd weeks or something like that. Then masters is 2 weeks after that. So we're good to go.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Penny. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll see you in the Facebook group. Thank you.
Thanks.